Hey, this is Justin in Washington again. I called before and I got my call played because I called Billy Corbin a jackass and a blowhard. I stand by that, by the way. I wanted to first off apologize to Roy. I think I kind of took a shot at him unnecessarily in my complaints. I was just so angry. I also wanted to thank Dan because I grew up in a conservative home, and my vote would have always been Republican. And once I started listening to your show, you kind of opened up my eyes on a lot of areas, and I would definitely consider myself more moderate than ever before. I would say that having Billy Corbin on at this point is counterproductive to that agenda. You're anti-making a difference because he presents himself in such a way that you guys always make it seem like David Sampson is the most unlikable person involved with Meadowlark Media. It's not. It's Billy Corbin for sure. In fact, the more I listen to him cackle maniacally when he's talking about all these horrible things that are happening in South Florida, the more I think we're headed towards the end of the story being kind of a Mr. Glass from Unbreakable. Like, we're going to find out a few years from now that everything that bad that's happened down there, the flooding, the violence, the executions, Billy Corbin's actually been behind all of it. Yeah, so that's just my thought. I don't know what you guys think about it. I will say, again, Dan, I don't want to, praise you too much, but I will say that because of listening to your show, I will never ever cast a vote for Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis for president. So you guys have definitely helped. 20 years ago, my vote would have been for whatever Republican was on the ballot, and now that is just not the case. So, Dan, thank you. Roy, sorry. Billy, still a jackass.
Welcome to another Because Miami. So many callers to the hotline at 786-505-9842 that Justin in Washington gets right through a couple of times. Let's make sure that you bombard Billy with your comments. 786-505-9842. Do you have a response to that, Billy? I am clearly anti-making a difference. You are poisoning a well that you are trying to keep from being more corrupt and contaminated. What do you have to say to Justin in Washington?
I don't want to spoil the ending as far as the Mr. Glass twist goes. And Unbreakable is my favorite M. Night Shyamalan movie, probably tied with Split because it's a sequel. But I don't want to spoil it, Dan. I mean, if we're going to find out years from now that I'm the malevolent force behind all of this fuckery here in Miami, then I want everybody to find out in real time.
We've got plenty of things to worry about locally and nationally. We're going to get to what it is that you've been doing in covering the Joe Carollo trial in a second. But Jessica, for a long time now, has been very worried about the seaweed blob that's coming and has arrived now. She's been warning us.
Speaking of Joe Carollo.
She saw it in Key West, and it's here now. Jessica, are you vying to become our seaweed blob correspondent? Do you have any information for us on the seaweed blob?
I just don't think anyone is taking it seriously. Apparently it causes respiratory and skin irritation, and there's 3 million tons of it, and we're just all accepting the fact that it's arriving now in Florida.
It rots. The sargassum rots, and it lets out like hydrogen sulfide, and so
it smells bad.
It smells bad, and as Jessica said, anyone with asthma or respiratory issues, it's incredibly dangerous. Not to mention that it's steeping like a tea.
It smells
in the
like
ocean.
eggs. It
Rotten
smells like
eggs.
we're hard boiling eggs on the coast. Can I take my dog to the beach? Like, what am I supposed to be doing here? No one's telling me what to do about this blob.
Well, first, it's also incredibly dangerous for boats because it gets caught up in propellers. So boats of all sizes are in danger. It endangers trade, it endangers fishing, it endangers pleasure boating, and of course, it endangers marine life. It kills marine life. It kills coral reefs because it's this like toxic tea steeping in the ocean and releasing these terrible things.
For people who don't understand, it's the size of the United States, is it not? Like it's
humongous. And I don't think we're talking about it nearly enough, which is why I'm going to volunteer myself to become the chief Blob correspondent here at Meadowlark Media. But I think to accurately get a sense for what we're dealing with, I think you're going to have to send me back to Key West, Dan.
Oh, okay. On the Meadowlark dime,
Yes.
she just wants a trip out to Key West.
Terrific.
I cannot say that I blame her.
Did you go to Books and Books and visit Judy Blume?
I did go to Books and Books this weekend. I didn't see Judy Blume there.
Oh, you got to go. Then she has to go back.
She was there in Key West a couple weeks ago when I was there.
Well, she works in the bookstore.
I didn't know that.
She and her husband own Books and Books.
See,
in
this
Key
is
West.
what you don't tell me anything useful, Billy. You just yell about things, and you could have told me this whole time Judy Blume was at Books and Books.
Also, I think about the Blob, if this is correct, Jessica, as the chief Blob correspondent here at Meadowlark, and of course with your Key West expense account, it's not contiguous. The Blob, it's not. It's big, but it's not like it's
right,
coming
it's
in
coming
waves.
in waves.
Right. Okay.
So it's like,
Literally.
okay, so it's just gonna keep coming until when? Until when, Billy?
Until we all suffocate.
I need to go to Key West and find out.
right.
That's what I'm saying.
Until it brings us to full sarcasm.
You are hired as our chief correspondent. Please, in coming weeks and months, explain to us and America, all the people listening to Because Miami who aren't in Miami. I want more details on the Blob.
Jessica live from Duval Street.
I want more details. You are hired. Let's
Hell
get
yeah,
to
I'll
what
bring Greg Cody with me.
Billy has been doing recently with our
That's my day job, Dan. Is I'm a courtroom correspondent now, which is why I can't do the Blob thing. You know,
you're a courtroom correspondent about Joe Carollo.
In God we trust, and it's that God that's been protecting me.
You have been following him on the trail. Jessica, I don't know how much familiarity you have with this, head of state militia that we have in South Florida, a full-blown communist who is a monster. But we're going to get to some of the details here to explain to you what's going on with him, because this lawsuit, this court frenzy around him is something that has to worry him now. No matter how powerful he has been over the years, this is deeply unpleasant for him, I imagine.
What's interesting about it is everybody's been talking about the lawsuit that Disney filed against Ron DeSantis, which is a First Amendment retaliation suit. It's basically saying we as a corporation expressed our rights to comment on legislation being passed by government, and you are now retaliating against us as a result of that. The governor has been frank about it. The entire Republican legislature has been frank about it, that they targeted Disney and are depriving them of certain rights that the state had previously granted them because they didn't like their opinion, because they spoke out, not even kind of feebly as well, against him. That's exactly the lawsuit and the court drama that is playing out just blocks away from here at the Wilkie Ferguson Courthouse in downtown Miami against Joe Carollo. And incredibly, it is the same exact. Fundamentally, it's a First Amendment retaliation case. The owners of Bill Fuller, Martin Pinilla, they own a lot of property. Some of the biggest property owners in the historic section of Little Havana, in the cultural center of Calle Ocho. They were targeted by Joe Carollo because they supported his political rival, a candidate running against him in the 2017 election. And as a result, he weaponized all of the different departments of the city manager's office, the city attorney, police, code enforcement, fire department, to go after these guys and try to shut their businesses down out of political retaliation. And this week in Colonel Jessup at the end of A Few Good Men style, the judge said on Monday,
you can't handle the truth.
I was like, when did we get that card? That was amazing. Thank you, Jessica. The judge said, plaintiff, you may introduce your next witness. And the plaintiff said, we call Joe Carollo to the stand. And he was his usual paranoid, delusional, conspiracy spewing self. It all quickly descended into his usual, rambling, dissembling demagoguery. He said that he accused at least 8 or 9 witnesses that all testified that he was targeting these folks. He testified that they all lied. He accused the plaintiff's attorney of suborning that perjury. Dan, did you know that the Iranians are in Cuba, in a mosque in Havana, radicalizing the Cubans to do their bidding in Latin America?
Was not aware.
Well, that's what Joe Carollo testified to in the show. Why? I'm not entirely sure, but that happened. We had Venezuelan money laundering. We had Jewish Cubans running amok on Calle. We had scary murals, Dan, the scary murals. 3 people testified that Joe Carollo, before this week, including his former chief of staff, including a former police chief, said that Joe Carollo was complaining about murals on these guys' property because they had too many black people in them. And he didn't want people to think that Little Havana was like Liberty City, was a black neighborhood.
Thanks, Joe.
And he said he did admit that he expressed concerns about, quote, scary murals, end quote. As he started to ramble, the judge continuously rebuked him and said, please don't narrate. Just tell us, just answer the questions. And he testified that he's worried that the plaintiffs who own this historic property, and ball and chain, it's as Little Havana can be. But Joe says, my concern is that they are trying to de-Cubanize and de-Latinize Little Havana. And meanwhile, the plaintiff shows a photo of Joe Carollo at a ribbon-cutting ceremony for the new Starbucks on Calle, which people have just been totally rejecting. And in fact, the plaintiff's attorney revealed that Fuller and Pania, the property owners, they refused to rent space to Starbucks in any of their properties that they own because they thought that it would actually not be consistent with the flavor and the historic culture of Little Havana. And so it was a really embarrassing thing. One of my favorite moments was when he admitted that he had no evidence that Bill Fuller was laundering money for Venezuela, but that didn't stop him from going to FDLE and reporting him for that so that they would investigate him for that. Reporting him actually 3 times for various crimes, including voter fraud, that he had no evidence of, that he wanted the FDLE to investigate this guy for. He went to the state authorities and said they're operating a bar illegally outside of their liquor license to try to get their liquor license revoked. All of these things were investigated, and yet nothing happened because there was no evidence of wrongdoing. And most incredibly, at the end of this, he realized, or we all realized, and the jury, raised some eyebrows. These properties had been, since Joe was elected to the city commission again in late 2017, these properties have been, let's go around the room. How many times do you think this guy's properties have been
I don't want to play a game. I don't want to play a game with the room.
I love a game.
20.
Just tell us.
Times?
Just tell us, Billy.
How many times?
Billy,
20.
just tell us, please.
Were they investigated? Were they raided? Were they inspected by police, fire, and code?
Billy, just tell us.
84 times.
What?
Whoa.
This is
I think I win, though, because I said 69.
Yeah,
yeah, you do.
I would have said $1,
Nice.
Bob. $1, Bob. 84 times. And you consider the size of the city, the number of businesses, the number of bars, the number of houses. There's no other property owners that have been targeted like this.
You have enjoyed the last couple of weeks making fun of his actual alleged impotence. You have something that his third wife has alleged as well.
Jessica, how long have you been in Miami?
2 years.
2 years.
Billy.
So what's something important to note about Joe Carollo, and I'm going to read you some excerpts, Dan, from a Miami Herald editorial, and it's a column, actually, dated May 3rd. The headline is "The King of Crazies." Here are some excerpts. It's about Joe Carollo, if you can believe that. Welcome back, Crazy Joe. Deep down, we knew you hadn't really changed. We knew it was just an act, behaving like a semi-sane and responsible person all those months while Miami was on the brink of financial ruin. People were actually talking about the new mature Joe Carollo, the one who selflessly put the well-being of the community above his own petty political appetites. You were slick, Joe. You really had him going. But deep down, we knew you were still the same paranoid fruitcake you've always been. We knew it wouldn't take much to unhinge your wobbly brain pan. It's no contest, Joe. You're the king of the crazies. The press conferences are vintage Carollo. You're power hungry, a mini dictator exploitator, an extortionist. That's what a shrink would call projection, Joe. But don't you dare go seeking psychiatric help now. Don't be a party pooper. It's like old times, Joe, watching you stand at the microphones, rambling, white-knuckled and accusatory. You've still got the magic, Joe. You've still got that glazed, petrified expression of a three-legged gerbil in a python pit. Once more around the room, this was dated May 3rd of what year? Of what year?
How long has it been?
Definitely not this year.
How long has he been in power? 40 years? How long has he been in power?
Off and on since 79. He was elected as the youngest city commissioner in the history of Miami on right around my first birthday in 1979.
I'm going to guess the year 2000.
It is the year 2000. It is 23 years this week. And
wow, good job, Dan.
It is from
Happy birthday.
It is from Carl Hiaasen, who already at this point in 2000, Dan, you might remember, had been writing about Joe Carollo for over 15 years. Joe Carollo is like a cancer on this city that you think is in remission, but then 15 years later, it's back to fucking kill us all.
It was very well written. Again, though, while you read
you
read Carl Hiaasen well.
You still got that glazed, petrified expression of a three-legged gerbil and a python
You
pit.
didn't address the impotence alleged by his third wife.
I'm sure we have a card for that, Dan. We might even have 3 cards for that.
All right, great. So you want me to play the music?
Joe and his anxiety can function in society.
Speaking of which, it's kind of funny because Joe is like the ultimate Trumpian figure. He is the victim always. He is he is being put upon, he is being targeted, everybody's conspiring against him, and most importantly, every accusation is a confession. Whenever he accuses somebody else of something, it's him telling you that's exactly what he's doing.
Shut up for a second.
A Cuban Missile Crisis in his comically large pants.
You still haven't told us about the allegations of impotence from his third wife. Hold on a second.
Loss of consortium. Penis is broken. Wife beater can't beat his meat.
Okay, so tell
My
us.
favorite part of the cards on this show is how seamless they are. It's like, hang on a second. Let me
yes,
press this button.
Well, you requested them, and I'm still asking for the sound from his wife that you won't go to.
So it was Joe's second wife that sued this ladder manufacturer for loss of consortium. You might recall from last week's episode of Because Miami. But I'm sorry, I'm cackling maniacally. I'm sorry, Justin. I'm sorry, Justin in Washington. So Dan, you've taken my word for it on this guy, and Carl Hiaasen's word for it on this guy. But let's hear from someone who really had an intimate relationship with him. Anna Allegro was married to Joe Carollo for about a month. It was his third wife. This was 2009. Anna Allegro is the self-proclaimed Miami Republican bad girl. She married Carollo after she dated Alex Diaz-Laportilla, also currently a city commissioner, formerly a state lawmaker. And she married Joe Carollo and then later got involved with David Rivera, for which she got involved in a ghost candidate election fraud scheme, which sent her to federal prison. But in 2009, she spent... This is a story for another time, Dan. So she spent about 35 days or so, married to Joe Carollo.
Is this sound in English or in Spanish?
The sound is in Spanish, but we have had Angel doing the Lord's work.
Angel Resto, our graphics guy.
Animated so you can, because this is an audio interview that she did on Spanish radio that was rebroadcast on CNN, and we have brought it to life in kind of Sin City-inspired Frank Miller fashion so you could better illustrate what it is that Anna Allegro is talking about.
El señor Joe Carollo, estuvimos casados, si no me equivoco, 35 días. Consecuencia de que él, mientras era alcalde de la ciudad de Miami, estaba metiendo demandas legales en otros estados con el nombre de María Ledón, la primera señora, donde usaban un término que dice consortium, que es la inhabilidad de tener sedaciones. Me estaba hablando de que quería matar a la primera señora y que tenía un plan con un alcalde de Brasil para sacarla de la tierra de Norteamérica, llevarla a Brasil y después asesinarla. El señor Joe Carollo tiene unos hábitos tan extraños que era como vivir con Drácula. Llegaba a la casa a las 3 y 4 de la mañana, se iba todas las noches a la bodeguita del medio esa de la esquina ahí en Coral Way a bailar con mujeres. Empezó a traer a personas bien extrañas a la casa cada vez que llegaba. En una ocasión llegué a la casa y él estaba con muchos afroamericanos. Eso fue algo extraño porque había muchas personas en religiones extrañas, no sé, santería, Yahweh, yo no entiendo. Me tuve que ir para otro cuarto porque él, cada vez que llegaba, me despertaba, me estiraba de la cama y me abusaba. Una vez me sacó una pistola y me la puso en la cabeza. En una ocasión me tiró en el piso, en el closet, y me dio un golpe en la cabeza, se me tiró encima y me empezó a gritar, llama a la policía, llama a la policía. Y le dije, Joe, te aconsejo que te calmes, esto va a ser un escándalo, no es la primera vez que le has pegado a una dama y no va a ser la última, por lo que estoy viendo.
Mom, help me, Dad's hurting my mom. What happened? Help me, Dad's hurting my mom.
Now, to be fair to Joe Carollo, because I'm nothing if not fair to Joe Carollo, Dan, that same year they were married in 2009, Anna Allegro was busted for allegedly shoplifting a pair of sandals, and Joe got fed up. The charges were dropped, but he divorced her after just 83 days officially of marriage legally. And Carollo claimed in court papers that he was the one that was being abused, not the other way around. He denied Allegro's claims. He said that she had, quote, become irrational and abusive, that, quote, the husband genuinely fears for his safety, end quote. And his attorney added that he was concerned about, quote, her use of illegal narcotics and prescription pills. But as I said, keep in mind that with Joe Carollo, every accusation is a confession.
Everyone here lacks credibility, and it's probably all true.
Breaking news on this Loco de Mayo edition of the Because Miami podcast. Just yesterday, a federal judge found, quote, substantial evidence that the city of Miami is guilty of unconstitutional racial gerrymandering and recommends that the city tosses out its redrawn district map before the November elections. This was the corrupt district map that was plotted out by, in part, a defrocked lawyer, a man who was disbarred from the from being a lawyer in Florida. That, you know what you have to do, Roy, to actually get disbarred in Florida? I don't want to know, actually. It certainly can't be legal. But the judge basically said that what Joe Carollo, God damn it.
What happened this time?
I wasn't prepared to say. I wasn't prepared to say Joe Carollo. I snuck up on myself there. It was almost like, Dan, like, wait, hang on. Wait, I got to press this card over here.
We got new cards. We got I can't say that. Hold on.
So Joe Carollo, Alex Diaz-Laportilla, Manolo Reyes, all of these commissioners did this crazy corrupt map where they openly spoke about how they wanted to create like Hispanic districts and diminish the voting power of black Miamians. And they even gerrymandered Joe Carollo's house into his district. Because Joe Carollo has been renting a house in the district in Little Havana, so he wanted to save the money on the rent, and he wanted to be able to homestead his house because he might lose the house in this litigation that we talked about at the top of the show.
Lots of consortium. Wife beater can't beat his meat.
Commissioners Joe Carollo, Alex Diaz-Laportilla, Manolo Reyes et al. Were quite candid, actually, when they were doing this redistricting process in a city commission meeting, that their goal was to ensure that districts 1, 3, and 4 remained predominantly Hispanic, and District 5 was a predominantly black district. And so you can't do that. You can't go ahead and gerrymander a redistricting map based on race. More on the racist city of Miami and their unconstitutional, racially gerrymandered map next week on the program.
I love this town!
Miami's like Little Satan, but Big Satan up in Tallahassee. What's going on up there in DeSantistan? So this week in the Florida Capitol, peaceful protesters delivered a case of pudding to Governor Ron DeSantis' office. 3 fingers up. And then they did a sit-in in the governor's office. These are civil rights activists who are tired of the corruption, the pay-to-play politics, the hateful legislation that has been passed in the last 60 days of this Florida legislative session, intended to target and infringe upon the rights of women, minorities, the LGBTQ plus community, all the book bannings. They're just tired of what this supermajority of Republicans have done this legislative session. They did a sit-in. They sang civil rights songs. It was a peaceful protest, and they were arrested. 13 of them were arrested for trespassing, and they were banned from the Capitol for a year. Which I'd love to be banned from Tallahassee. That would be great. Only thing I'd miss is the 9 Waffle Houses that they have up there. And to bring this in for a landing, this horrific, unconstitutional legislative session in the state of Florida, our friend Natasha Sutherland from FloridaWatch.org is going to share with us some of the worst of what happened over the last 60 days, not only in Tallahassee, but the worst of what they did, these lawmakers, to those of us in the state of Florida, bringing DeSantistan to its stunning conclusion, a grand finale. I'll welcome you all to DeSantistan.
The free state of Florida, most free of any land, a proud phallic peninsula, our home DeSantistan.
So, from Disney Wars to banning our freedom to read, learn, use the bathroom, get health care, exist, we've been through quite a lot this legislative session, and it's really hard to keep track of everything that's been going on. But let's take a look at some of the moments behind the headlines. Here are 5 moments when Florida conservatives exposed their true fascist behinds. All right, so starting with number 5, there was a whole lot of anti-LGBTQ plus legislation, left and right, all session long. And then there was Webster Barnaby, who decided to take matters into his own hands by calling us demons and imps. Take a look at this.
This is the planet Earth, where God created men, male, and women, female. I'm a proud Christian, conservative Republican. The Lord rebuke you, Satan, and all of your demons and all of your imps who come and parade before us. That's right, I called you demons and imps.
Okay, number 4. Then there was this guy, Rep. Jeff Holcomb, who talked about how hatred is rampant through the military, apparently. Kind of a Freudian slip, if you ask me. Take a look at that.
ISIS, the Taliban, and Al-Qaeda. Those are the folks who discriminate. We bombed a building in 2017 like we never usually do. We bombed it because they threw homosexuals off that building. Our terrorist enemies hate homosexuals more than we do. They're the ones who discriminate. Our job...
Number 3, we all remember the Don't Say Period bill. Now you need to check out this clip with Democratic Representative Ashley Gant, who asks a very simple question of the Republican sponsor, Sam McClain, and he really can't answer it very well now, can he?
Does this bill prohibit conversations about menstrual cycles? Because we know that typically the ages is between 10 and 15. So if little girls experience their menstrual cycle in 5th grade or 4th grade, will that prohibit conversations from them since they are in a grade lower than 6th grade?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It would.
And then there's number 2. You've heard about the banned books, AP African American History. Well, have you heard of Randy Fine? Because he's got a little bit of a story to tell. Florida just recently passed their universal voucher bill. Essentially, what that money is going to do is redirect from our local public schools and provide kind of like scholarships, but scholarships for the rich and the well-to-do, people that don't actually need it to send their kids to private schools, to corporate charter schools, and so on. And Rep. Randy Fine, a millionaire himself, admits that he's going to benefit from this, while the rest of us lose money in our local public schools.
I'm really proud we passed the school choice bill today. Every child
deserves to go to the best school for them. It shouldn't be based on where you live or how much money you make. And so I'm really proud that today we have created a historic expansion.
And then number one, we've got Representative Robinson, chair of one of the committees, on one of the bills where you have public comment. So people are able to enter into the record how they feel about a particular bill. And some people wanted to make it abundantly clear based on the names that they went ahead and put down for the record.
Waves in opposition. Anita Dick is an opponent. Waves in opposition. Holden Hiscock is also an opponent.
And so these are the people that are running the free state of Florida. They've been in charge for so long, and they are so drunk on their own power that they've really run out of constructive things to do. And it's getting to the point where you're seeing crazy things like this. And this is just the state of things in the state of Florida. And they're trying to make America Florida. America, like one of my favorite reps recently said, you're in danger, girl.
The disenfranchised and the woke cry when their books are banned. A Christo-fascist paradise here in Decentistan.
Roy, do you remember Miami Police Captain Javier Ortiz?
Unfortunately.
So we had Mark Caputo on. He was with Politico at the time to talk about a story he had done about, quote, Miami's most corrupt cop, end quote. Captain Ortiz has 50 citizen complaints, 20 use of force incidents, 3 suspensions, and he's cost city taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars to settle a litany of abuse lawsuits. He was fired, terminated finally, when Police Chief Art Acevedo was fired by the city commission after 6 months on the job because he called them out for being corrupt and running the city and the police department like a mafia. So they had to get rid of him. And then they anointed his successor, who was a longtime veteran assistant chief of the department, Manny Morales. And he got sworn in, you might remember, while Joe Carollo played the Godfather theme, because they are, in fact, a racketeering organization masquerading as a municipal government. But this guy comes in and terminates Javier Ortiz. Now, here's the thing. Javier Ortiz, they did not have any cause to terminate him, because they had plenty of cause in the past, but the way the union contract's written, they have to take action. It's like use it or lose it, right? So they missed every opportunity over the last 20 years to charge him, to arrest him, to fire him. And now Manny Morales, who's really, according to Art Acevedo's testimony in the Joe Carollo lawsuit, he's just a stooge, a henchman, a capo of this Miami mafia. And so as a tribute to Joe Carollo, who wanted Ortiz fired, he finally fires Ortiz. Here's the problem. If you come for the king, you better not miss. Because if he wins on arbitration, he'll come back stronger than ever. And guess what?
He won on arbitration.
You have the ta-da sound effect ready to go?
I got
Javier Ortiz has been rehired by the Miami Police Department. According to a settlement signed this week and approved by City Manager Art Noriega, City Attorney Victoria Mendez, Police Chief Manny Morales, and Miami Mayor Ponzi Postalita, Francis Suarez. He's back, ladies and gentlemen. The man who famously beat and choked and tasered a tourist at Ultra because his girlfriend had a glow stick. And then the video proved that he lied under oath to cover it up, which led to a $400,000 settlement, by the way. You had the guy who called Tamir Rice, who was a 10-year-old boy who was executed by police officers within 2 seconds. He was playing in a park with a fake gun, like a kid would. He was 12 years old, and he was executed 2 seconds after police exited their car. Javier Ortiz called him a thug. Javier Ortiz called Beyonce anti-police and demanded that officers boycott her concert at Marlins Park, which was the first stop on her Formation World Tour, by refusing to work security for her. Nobody did that. Javier Ortiz falsely arrested NFL and Miami Hurricanes legend Jonathan Vilma in 2009, and at the time New York Jets wide receiver Robbie Anderson at Rolling Loud in 2017, and lied in their arrest reports. He also... him and his bike squad broke a Miami Heat fan's eye socket on video while fans were celebrating their second straight NBA championship on the streets here of downtown Miami in 2013. And these are just some of the highlights of his career, which also accuse him of cyber stalking and doxing a woman who dared to criticize the police department. I could really go on and on and on and on about this, but he is now back on the police force. But here's the thing. This settlement they signed is absolutely crazy. First things first, he gets all of his back pay and benefits, which means that it was as if he has not been fired. He got a paid vacation for the last year or so. So he gets his $155,000 salary paid. He then has to, get this, he has to work the C shift, which is the late shift, the midnight shift, for the next 2.5 years, he's assigned to the police chief. Here's the thing, the police chief stops working at 5 p.m. unless there's an emergency. So this guy's being paid for the next 2.5 years to work the graveyard shift. He's also allowed to get outside employment, which means that he can get a job during the day. He can sleep at night while he's getting paid by the taxpayers $155,000. And then he gets to retire on November 7th, 2025 with his full public pension.
Christ, I'm in the wrong career, man.
You need a CBA is what I'm going to unionize Meadowlark right now on the air. This will be my last.
Oh, really? You and David Sampson.
This will be my last appearance here on the program. I'm going to sit in the corner, like Commissioner Cucroyo. But hang on a second.
Oh, here we go.
Lots of consortium. Penis is welcome. Wife beater can't beat his meat.
So let me be clear. I don't know how else to describe this other than this guy must have compromise on all of these people. This is like a payoff. This is like, we're going to pay you to sit at home for the next 2.5 years and then retire with your full pension, okay, which will be vested with some significant, like nearly $155,000 a year for the rest of his life, paid for by the taxpayers, so that he doesn't say what he knows about the city of Miami government, which would make him a really interesting guest on this program, I feel, because what he must know about the mayor, what he must know about the city manager, what he must know about the city attorney and these commissioners must keep them up at night such that they're using taxpayer money to basically pay this guy off. And now the upside of that, of course, he won't be on the street interacting with people. But this is a guy you may remember. I don't know if you remember this.
Oh, boy.
Right. He got promoted twice. First to lieutenant, then to captain, his current position, in 2014, 2017. And on his application for these promotions, he claimed that he was a black man and got promoted.
Oh, brother.
Now, nobody. It's hard for people listening because we're gonna for our Miami moment today. We're gonna play a video when Javier Ortiz appeared before the Miami City Commission, tripling down on this claim, much to the shock of Joe Carollo and Commissioner Keon Hardiman, who was at the time the only black commissioner on the dais, and I will say that, cheers. Cafecito Cowboys over here.
Goddamn right.
Javier Ortiz, I think I don't want to appear stereotypical. I don't want to judge, but Javier Ortiz is a Cuban-American man. Can I just say that? Am I allowed to say that?
That's the assumption, sure.
Can we ask the white guy behind you? Is that?
Matt, is he a Cuban-American?
Can we get a consensus here?
Is he?
Okay, thank
yes.
you. This whole Matt thing is it's like a riff on the neighbor from Home Improvement or something. There should be a fence kind of partially blocking his face as well. But he has no lines. Thanks. He's a Cuban-American man. Not a particularly dark-skinned Cuban-American man either, but was promoted twice for claiming that he was black. And here for our Miami moment is really this just classic moment. At the Miami City Commission. And we'll see you next week. Cocaine's.
As far as Captain Carr, she loves to call me a Latin male. I'm a black male. Yes, I am. And I am non-Hispanic. I was born in this country. That's how I feel.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So you classify yourself today as a black male.
Yes.
When you applied for the police department, did you classify yourself as a black male or a white male at the time?
I think I put white male. I don't know if, I know I put white male, but I don't know if I put Hispanic. No, I know, listen, I know who I am, but it's also,
You put down Hispanic
male. I'm sorry?
You put down Hispanic male, didn't you?
Okay. As a man, I stand by it.
When did you have this, coming with God moment that you were black? When did God tell you that?
Well, I learned that there's people in my family that are mixed and that are black.
I see.
Let's not talk about the degree of blackness.
Oh, no, you're blacker than me. That's obvious. And if you know anything about the one-drop rule, which started in the 20th century, which is what identifies and defines, how you doing, what a black male is or a Negro, you would know that if you have one drop of black in you, you are considered black. So you're probably black too, Joe.
Can we do a DNA?
Joe, you're probably black. Nobody sent me here, nor did the city manager. I am my own man.
That's right, and you're your own black man, I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now I'm being attacked.
Yeah.
Half of my family's Jewish. Probably didn't know that either.
Thank you. Your 5 minutes
Thank
has
you.
expired.
Mr. Ortiz claimed that he was a black. Now I hear he's Jewish black. I'm afraid maybe next month would be, black Jewish woman.